Aretha Franklin, the queen of soul music, died last week at age 76.
Welcome to Plain English, the podcast that goes at the right speed for English language learners. Listen now and read the transcript online at plainenglish.com. Now, here's Jeff, your host for today's episode.
She's famous for belting out lyrics and even spelling the word respect in a song. Aretha Franklin, a titan of American music in the 1960s and 1970s, died at her home in Detroit. Welcome to Plain English. I'm Jeff. The producer is JR, and you are listening to Plain English, the podcast for English learners. Today is episode 79 for August 23rd, 2018. I can't believe it's already August 23rd. Well, it's actually not, since I'm recording this on the 18th, but I can't believe it's going to be August 23rd soon, almost the end of the summer. Anyway, you can find the transcript of this episode on the website at plainenglish.com/79. And remember, all the transcripts have instant translations from English to French, Spanish, Portuguese, Italian, Chinese, and Japanese. The phrasal verb that we'll talk about later in the show is break out. Hey, if you're listening on an iPhone, chances are you have an app called Apple Podcasts already installed. If you do, check it out. It's a purple icon, and you can find us on there. If you click subscribe in Apple Podcasts, the program will be automatically downloaded to your phone each time a new episode comes out. The thing I like about Apple Podcasts is that you can explore all kinds of other podcast programs in English or in other languages, all right from that app. If you prefer to listen on Spotify, don't forget to click follow so you see all the newest episodes. Aretha Franklin died last week. She was one of the most pioneering and celebrated pop singers in American history. You have almost definitely heard her sing before. You have if you've heard her sing the song Respect, where she spells out the word R-E-S-P-E-C-T and says that's all she's asking for is a little respect when her man gets home. That song, and many others in her catalog, united feminism, religion, and the civil rights movement and made her an icon across many different, and at the time segregated, parts of American culture. Her music had a powerful emotion to it, touching her fans with themes of joy, pain, faith, and the trials of life. She sang about adult themes, about struggles and love and life as a woman and as an African American woman. Aretha Franklin's unique style sat between rhythm and blues, or R&B music, and gospel. R&B music is a style that emerged in African American communities in the 1940s and included piano, guitar, bass, drums, saxophone, and often background vocalists. Gospel music usually features a dominant singer and religious lyrics. The combination was often called soul music, and Aretha Franklin was its big star. Her nickname was the Queen of Soul. Here's how she defined soul music in her own words. She said, "Soul, to me, is a feeling, a lot of depth, and being able to bring to the surface that which is happening inside." The famous blind pianist and soul singer Ray Charles said, "I don't know anyone that can sing a song like Aretha Franklin." Mary J. Blige, a more contemporary singer, said that Aretha Franklin is the reason why women want to sing. In her career, Franklin recorded 20 songs that topped Billboard's R&B charts. Over 50 songs made it into the top 10. She won 18 Grammy Awards. In fact, the Grammys created a category that fit her perfectly: Best Female R&B Vocal, and she alone won the award for the first 8 years of its existence. Aretha Louise Franklin got her start at a young age. She was called a child prodigy and started singing gospel at her dad's church when she was very young. Her father was a very successful and dynamic preacher. His nickname was the man with the $1 million voice. Her mother was a gospel singer herself. Franklin released her first album in 1956. She was just 14 years old. The album was a collection of gospel songs. But her career was put on hold early, as she had 2 sons by the time she was 17. When she made her return to music, she decided to move away from the religious themes of gospel music and transition to more secular, popular music. At the time, in Detroit, a young record label was signing singers to develop a new style called Motown. It was a signature Detroit sound that would produce huge stars like Diana Ross and Smokey Robinson. But in 1960, Franklin instead signed with a more mainstream label, Columbia Records, which had international reach. She found some moderate success there, but never really broke out as a star. After 8 years, she made a switch to a new label, Atlantic Records. Her new manager said his goal was simply to make good tracks, let Aretha play the piano again, and, in his words, let the lady wail, meaning let her use her powerful voice. And that is exactly what she did. Free of the constraints of a more corporate, big business label, she found the voice that would make her famous. The first song she recorded was called "I Never Loved a Man the Way I Love You," and she played piano and did the vocals. It became her first #1 R&B hit. It was the first of many. Her most successful years were the late 1960s and early 1970s with Atlantic Records. During that time, she was constantly on the radio, 3-4 times an hour. Radio audiences in the 1960s and 70s were heavily segregated by race, but she had the ability to cross over and be popular to all audiences on many types of radio stations. Some of her most famous recordings were actually songs written by others, but she made them her own. Rolling Stone magazine said that she didn't do covers, where she just sang someone else's songs. She did makeovers, where she totally transformed the song and made it something new. In fact, her most famous recording, Respect, was actually recorded by Otis Redding, but she is the one who made it famous. Franklin's career peaked in the 1970s and went into a bit of a slump, but she revived her career again, often pairing with more contemporary singers or doing covers. One of her most famous recent covers was the Adele song Rolling in the Deep, which headlined an album called Aretha Franklin Sings the Great Diva Classics. In addition to all her hit songs and Grammy Awards, Franklin won the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the Grammy's Lifetime Achievement Award, and was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1987, the first woman to get that honor. She also sang at the inauguration of American President Barack Obama in 2009. I wish I could include clips of Aretha Franklin songs in a podcast, but I can't because it's against the intellectual property rules. So let me just say, I know a lot of you are listening on Spotify, so do a search for Aretha Franklin. I just did, and one of the first albums that comes up is called This Is Aretha Franklin. Listen to the songs on there. A couple of her most famous ones are You Make Me Feel Like a Natural Woman, Chain of Fools, and I Say a Little Prayer. That last one is probably my favorite Aretha Franklin song, I Say a Little Prayer. Quick hello to a couple of listeners today. Catalina from Costa Rica is listening and working on her pronunciation. She did like I suggested and picked a few paragraphs from episode 77 to read out loud and practice. I also want to say hi to Ferda. She is an engineer from Turkey. Thanks to Kata and Ferda for listening and being part of Plain English. Hey, don't forget about our email list at plainenglish.com/mail. When each episode comes out, I send a summary of the show, plus a bonus vocabulary word or phrase, and links to the English articles that I used to prepare the program. Just go to plainenglish.com/mail to sign up for those. All right, today's episode has already been pretty long, so let's try to make the phrasal verb quick today. The phrasal verb I chose to review is break out. When Aretha Franklin was singing for Columbia Records in the early 1960s, she was successful, but she never really broke out as a star. It wasn't until she signed with Atlantic Records that she broke out as a star. To break out, you probably got this from the context, is to burst onto the scene, to gain fame, or to achieve a lot of success quickly. Some stars break out early. Some don't necessarily break out at all. They just gradually gain their success and recognition. But when Aretha Franklin switched record labels, they let her be her. They let her find her own powerful voice, and she used it. Her first song with Atlantic Records was a #1 hit. She finally broke out as a star. Wasn't Adele one of those stars that broke out early? Her first album was called 19, after her age, and that was a #1 album in Britain. I would say Adele broke out as a star early in life. Break out is one of those phrasal verbs that has multiple meanings, so don't get confused if you see it in another context. Remember in episode 40, you heard that the Mexican gang leader El Chapo broke out of prison twice. To break out of prison means to escape from prison. A fire can break out, a storm can break out. In this case, break out means something can start suddenly, like a fire or storm. And your skin can break out too. You might say that your arm broke out in a rash if you touched something you're allergic to. But in the case of Aretha Franklin, she broke out as a star in the late 1960s. She became famous. She became successful. She broke out when she was with Atlantic Records. That's it for today. Wherever you listen to music, even if it's just YouTube, search for Aretha Franklin and listen to some of her songs. She was an important figure in American musical history. She has a great voice, and really listen to the lyrics too. They're very powerful. The next episode of Plain English will be out on Monday, and we'll talk about the progress or lack of progress that the UK has been making in negotiating its exit from the European Union. See you then.